And we are live. Welcome. Good to see you back here on YouTube for my first official live show from the new studio that I built. You may have seen the previous video. That was kind of a test recording where I was looking at the lights and seeing if everything looked well on camera. I made a few tiny adjustments, but I think I'm ready to get to work. And so it's good to have you here as well. As always, you can post your comments in the comment section. I won't be always responding right away because I'm recording a podcast about a whole slew of topics, among which a very exciting tidbit of potential news about Harry Potter. So stay tuned. But since I'm focusing on recording the entire show first, afterwards I will get back and I'll try to answer your questions. So good to see everyone back, the old people, but also those of you that are watching this for the first time. If you have been following my YouTube channel, you may have seen all sorts of reactions to, mostly to trailers. That's what I like to share. But this is something I've been doing actually for way longer than these YouTube reaction videos. And this is a weekly podcast that I've done since 2005 or something like that. I must have recorded thousands and thousands of episodes. So if this is your first time, just stay put and enjoy the show. If you would like to, if you don't have time to watch the entire video, then of course since it's a podcast, it's also super easy to just listen to the audio version, since you know what I look like anyway. You can go to fatherroderick.com or just look for Father Roderick in your podcasting software. I also think that these shows are automatically posted or reposted on Facebook, but for some reason Facebook does not show that. I think at one point I had to indicate that Facebook could publish my podcasts. So I think that's activated, but it doesn't show me. When can we expect a tour of the new house? For those of you, again, that are new, this is a brand new house. We have finished renovations about 3 weeks ago, or at least I live here for 3 weeks now. We're on the verge of finishing the last few bits of renovation. But the studio is already in place. I've got internet. The equipment is here. But I would like to give a tour, like a virtual tour of the house when everything is done. So, for instance, I still need to put the posters on the wall and lamps and that sort of stuff. So it doesn't look exactly the way I want it to look, but we're almost done. Hey, Michiel, good to see you too from the UK. Hope everything is well. Haven't been talking to you for a long time. We were always playing Valheim when I was still in my temporary loft at the rectory of a colleague of mine, Father Henry. But since I moved in this house, I just did not have the time or the energy to do any online gaming. However, yesterday I did finish my setup for streaming video games, because that's also something that I used to do, and I'm going back to that. So I've got it took me a while. It's this very small office space that I've rearranged to make it work as like a secondary streaming studio. So for instance, if you've seen my reaction to Spiderman No Way Home yesterday, that I posted yesterday on YouTube, that one was filmed in the other studio. So it's very small, and it's, I don't know, it's very different from this set. This looks more like a TV set, hopefully. The other one is more a YouTube set. And then the only other room that I need to put in place is the Lego room for my Lego streams, because that's also something I do. That's not on this YouTube channel. You have to go look for, I think it's Brick Priest, but I'm not sure. I have a secondary channel on YouTube where I put all the Lego stuff, because it's way too much, and I do a lot of these long form streams where I build Lego sets. So that would be a little bit too much for this channel. But if you are into stuff like that and you want to hang out with me building Lego, then by all means check it out. So, but that's next door to this one, but I haven't put in place the streaming equipment yet. So I need to figure out how I'm going to stream that. I do have a few older computers that I may be able to use for that, but it takes a lot of time. Just this tiny building this studio took me several days, especially the lights. That was the hardest part. But also making sure all the equipment works and at the same time looks presentable. And the other room, that took me the entire day yesterday to put it in place. But I'm happy with the result. Hey, Mary, good to see you. Have followed you for years now. I have long COVID. Oh, no. I was 24 days in the hospital. Oh, my goodness. You're going to get through this. I've had long COVID earlier this year, and I made a full recovery. It took way more time than I ever thought it would. About half a year. I think I lost about half a year. But slowly, step by step, you'll be able to build up your older energy levels, etc. If it encourages you, I just ran a marathon 2 weeks ago. So that was for me the proof that I was finally over the effects of long COVID. So if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it as well. What's my opinion about the Streamlabs OBS controversy? I have not heard of it. I don't even know what that is about. I've kind of been out of the loop technically for many months. So I'm using Ecamm Live, which works fine. It's a Mac program, and I've paid for it. So yeah, I'll probably be switching to Macs for the Lego stream as well, and then for the gaming, obviously because I do almost only PC gaming, I'll be stuck with OBS or Streamlabs. Anyway, that's nor here and there. If Brananek wants to know if I have immunity. That depends, because even if you've had COVID and I've been vaccinated, after a number of months, the number of how do you call that? The overall protection gets lower. So I've had COVID about a year ago now. So it's very well possible that my defenses are much lower than they were half a year ago. So I'm super careful, and I hope that we will soon be able to get a booster shot. And because COVID, I'm done with that. I don't want to ever get that again. Right, let's get going with the show, if that's okay to you, because I have a number of things to talk about. Plus, I'm still expecting a delivery from IKEA. We're working on the kitchen, and I ordered a few kitchen doors, and so I got a live page here with the IKEA people when they will be here. So I got to keep an eye on that. And apparently right now it says that they're going to be here at 10 o'clock in the evening, which is two hours from now. But you never know with these deliveries. It wouldn't be the first time that I'm in the middle of a podcast and all of a sudden you still hear the doorbell and it's like, but your website said that you'd be here an hour after. Oh, well. Anyway, I hope you all are doing well. And I will get back to the chat and to your questions and topics after I'm done recording this show. But let's start with that. Yeah, I've got the jingles in place. Always have to double check if I have everything the way it's supposed to be. Let's put up the volume, and here we go. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of my weekly show, and I promise from now on it will be weekly again. As you know, I've been a little bit busy over the past half a year renovating the house and moving in. But the dust is slowly settling down and I'm getting back in the saddle. This episode is brought to you thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. If you join that community, not only are you supporting me, but you get something in return as well. Every week I record a separate show, especially and exclusively for my patron supporters as a thank you. It's called Father Roderick to the Max, and later on in this episode I will mention a few of the topics that I will talk about in that episode. But they make it possible for you to listen to this podcast or to watch it on YouTube. So thank you very much for your support.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
So we're approaching the end of the year already. I can't believe how quickly these last months are passing by. I'm already hearing the first Christmas songs on the radio. It's insane. In a few weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, I think we're starting Advent already, and then Christmas is just around the corner, and then it's the new year. For me, this past year has been insane. It's, of course, because I got COVID, but then also because I had to move. We're renovating this house where I'm currently podcasting from for more than 6 months. I just moved in. And then that is just my personal circumstances. But then also work-wise, everything is changing. And I basically have to kind of let go of everything that I thought I would be doing this year and next year. Because things are changing. My TV broadcasting company, for which I make my TV show, has told me that they're going to replace my show with a new format in which I have a very different role. I will just be one of the recurring people in that show. And so it won't be that weekly cadence of like 30 episodes per year, like 30 documentaries of half an hour that I used to make. So that also means, of course, that my income will change, because that was how I was able to pay the bills. And then, of course, thankfully, I had the community of patrons, but that does not cover all the costs. So this upcoming year, I'll have to make sure that I expand my reach and that I grow the community of patrons, because the television work will no longer be a source of income for me. On the other hand, it also frees me up tremendously, because creating a television episode every week, especially if you produce everything yourself like I do, I film, I interview, I do the editing. This past half year, I had to outsource a lot of the work because there was just not enough time, and I was so consumed by all the work here to make the house ready for me to move in. But normally I would produce almost all these episodes by myself. All that time, and that's easily 5 days a week that I was working on the TV work. All the other stuff that I did on YouTube, these podcasts, that was all done in my spare time, and sometimes when I should be sleeping. So there's going to be a huge amount of time that is now going to be freed up next year, so I can work on projects that will benefit you immediately, directly. And I'm so excited that the work that I used to do just for the Dutch audience, which was considerable because it wasn't public TV, so you would easily have like 80,000 people watching this. But I can now make the same programs with the same quality, but then I can make it for an international audience. Now that, of course, is not an instant audience like I have on TV. It is an audience to conquer, to find, and I'll be, hopefully, I will be able to count on your help as well to spread the word and to help people find the YouTube channel and help them get involved. And otherwise, there's so much out there when it comes to social media. So it's very hard for a simple priest like me who doesn't have a huge organization behind him who does all the marketing. I don't have a Netflix deal or anything. It's very hard to get noticed. But I know that the quality of what I make is going to be really, really good. And I'm super excited about the ideas that I have for next year. And I'm most excited that I will finally have the time and the room in my life to share it with you and to bring this whole experience for you as a follower of me to the next level. You'll be able to see my documentaries without listening to this strange Klingon-like Dutch language. If you've ever seen one of my TV shows via the online streaming website, then you could sure you can watch the images, but you can't understand it unless you are Dutch or speak Dutch. All right, so exciting things, but it's also an exercise in letting go. Everything that I used to build my life upon is now gone. My parish is no longer there. I don't have the friends anymore, so my social circle is very, very small right now. I've lost my house, my home. I'm losing my job in a certain way. But what remains is you as a community, my podcast listeners, and many of you have been there since forever, since 2005. That's how long I've been doing this stuff. So that for me is a huge reassurance and gives me a certain continuity, even though a lot of the other stuff is shifting.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You need a movie education. You need a movication. Now I'm gonna give it to you.
All right, let's talk Harry Potter, because I saw the most amazing news just today. And apparently, I heard it actually on my Google Home. I've got this news bulletin that always runs. I usually activate it a few times a day, so I hear a number of short shows about the news. And in one of these, I think it was IGN or something like that, they were talking about the original director, Chris Columbus, who directed the first Harry Potter movie. And I think he's always stayed involved in the Harry Potter franchise. Because now there is this jubilee, right, of Harry Potter. How many years? I don't recall. It's like 20 years ago that the first movie premiered. So they're celebrating that. There's going to be a reunion with the core actors that played in all these Harry Potter movies. So that's going to be cool. But Chris Columbus has said there is a lot of material, leftover material, that we cut out of the first movie, The Philosopher's Stone or The Sorcerer's Stone, that nobody ever watched. And this is actually good stuff because we tested it out in movie theaters. So what normally before they premiere a movie, they have these test audiences. And they will show a rough cut of the movie, and then they will have inquiries or question lists. And people will say, well, hey, I didn't understand this plot point, or I need more information about this character because he came out of the blue, or stuff like, well, the movie was too long. And apparently, according to Chris Columbus, when they did the research on a 3-hour version of The Philosopher's Stone or Sorcerer's Stone, the feedback that they got from parents was that the movie was way too long. The feedback that they got from children in the test audience was the movie is way too short. I think the movie right now totals about 150 minutes. So it's long. I mean, that's 2.5 hours. That is pretty long. It's actually, I think, the longest Harry Potter movie. But it never felt like that. And I'm pretty sure that if you've seen that first movie, you don't remember it as being long at all. In fact, I when I saw it in theaters, I saw this when I was studying in Rome, and I was very much behind on the hype for Harry Potter because I was studying in Rome. I kind of missed the boat when it came to the books, and so I caught up, and while I was in Rome, I went to the only theater that I could find that had English spoken, non-dubbed versions of the popular movies. So otherwise, I would have watched, Harry Potter e la pietra filosofale, or something like that. But thankfully, there was this one movie theater where they had the English version, maybe with Italian subtitles. I don't recall. But anyway, I thought that movie just flew by, and then I read the book, and I was like, wow, there's so much more in the book that we did not see in the movie. So I always remembered the movie as being short. Well, it turns out I actually was right. There was a lot of material that they cut from the original, 3-hour version because people were concerned that it would be too long for families. And, well, family, of course, is to children. They were all like, give us more. but also the parents. They pay for the tickets, right? So that's the demographic you have to please. So according to Chris Columbus, there is, for instance, an entire plot line featuring, what's his name? Peeves, who is like this ghost, and he's pretty important in the book, but he was completely left out on the cutting room floor. It's a little bit like Tom Bombadil in the Lord of the Rings movies. He's nowhere to be seen. Originally, they wanted to include him in the story, but, well, he never even got filmed. Hopefully, actually, they will reintroduce Tom Bombadil in the series that they're currently producing for Amazon, for Prime Video. But the material for the Harry Potter movie was filmed. I'm not sure if the special effects were done, but that's not a problem. Actually, I can imagine that if they would re-release this never before seen version of Harry Potter, and they would refine almost do like a special edition where they could also redo some of the special effects or brush up the special effects that at the time were pretty impressive, but now some of them, not all of them, but some of them look a bit dated. I think that people would go out in droves and watch that. So I always wonder, when someone as high profile as Chris Columbus says something like that in public, that's not a spur of the moment thing. That is probably because he is already kind of preparing this to happen. Remember the Schneider cut of the League of what was it? The Justice League movie. He started to mention this. Well, there's actually a version of this movie that isn't half as bad as the one that you've seen, and I'm willing to put it together. But he deliberately put it out there so that the fan base would rally and together started putting pressure on. I think that's also Warner, isn't it? Anyway, so there is money to be made here. There is a demographic that will buy this movie, will watch it. So that's ultimately why they decided, well, let's go ahead with this Schneider cut. Even though maybe they didn't think it was such a priority, but this is unfortunately an industry where it's mostly about money, ultimately. Sure, it's a creative industry, but whether something creative will get done or not, that depends on how much money it will bring in. So I am super excited. I couldn't, and then there was this other rumor that they wanted to make a movie version of the Cursed Child, the theater play that was written about Harry Potter and the others 20 years after the events in the movies. And the current actors would be the perfect age for that story. So I've never read the script. I've never seen the production. From what I've heard, it is pretty bad. And it's a very far below the quality of the Harry Potter books. But I'm thinking if they could do a movie version, then of course they can also fix the things that don't really work in that story. So I'd say go for it. I like what they do with the Fantastic Beasts stories, but that's exactly how I say it. I like it. I don't love it. It's not like I've rewatched those movies time and again, which I have done with the Harry Potter movies, and I have reread the books multiple times. I'm just not interested in the Fantastic Beasts universe. It's just not working for me. And of course, maybe that will also get better over time, but with the kids from Harry Potter, you have this established franchise that a new generation will love, but also the older generation will go watch it out of nostalgia. This has marked the childhood of so many of us. And in my case, it wasn't my childhood. It was my younger years as a priest. But I would still really, really love to go back and almost go back in time and re-experience the excitement that I felt when I saw that first movie. But anyway, speaking of film industry money problems, for months, Paramount has been hyping the next season of Star Trek Discovery. Now, Star Trek Discovery is the highest profile series based on Star Trek characters. Of course, you've got Picard, you've got Lower Decks, and then there's this new series featuring a hologram of Captain Janeway geared towards kids. It's a little bit, animation-wise, reminds me a bit of what Disney is doing with Clone Wars, or Lucasfilm is doing with the Clone Wars and with the Bad Batch and stuff. But it's all over the place. If you want to watch Picard, you have to subscribe to Amazon Prime. If you want to watch, or if you wanted to watch Discovery, it was Netflix. I'm not even sure about the animated series, where I don't think you can watch that anywhere here in Europe, at least. So it's probably just on Paramount Plus, which is another streaming platform that they launched a couple of years ago. Actually, I think it was already there, and then they renamed it into Paramount Plus. It's in the US, and they have plans to roll it out in other parts of the world as well. Kind of makes sense. Everybody wants a piece of the pie. Although there is, I think, a diminishing return on investment. Disney, of course, had so much IP, intellectual property, that couldn't fail. So Disney obviously was very quickly one of the biggest platforms. Apple has been struggling way more, even though Apple has tremendous good shows on Apple Plus. Ted Lasso, of course, is fantastic. I recently started watching Foundation, which is based on the Isaac Asimov books, which I've not read, but the first episode of that series is just completely blew me away. The production value. There are a number of good shows on Apple, but I think if Apple hadn't given away the first year for free to those that bought an iPhone or an iPad or another Apple device, I don't think they would have been able to get into that market. And it's still, of course, a question mark whether whether people will renew their subscription after a year, after that first free year. So Paramount Plus, good luck, guys. And of course, Paramount has a number of movies and intellectual properties that people enjoy, but I'm not sure if it's enough to pay, what is it, $10 a month? That's another $10. We already have so many of these subscriptions. And so what was really terrible for Star Trek fans, and I'm one of them, was that after all this hype, all this excitement about the fourth season of Star Trek Discovery, 2 days before the premiere, there is this notice appearing on social media that to all our international Star Trek fans, well, bad luck, guys. We're pulling this show from Netflix, and the only way you'll be able to see this, unless you already are in the United States and you have a subscription to Paramount Plus, is to wait for us to introduce Paramount Plus over in Europe, which we're going to do sometime in 2022 for some countries. And if you don't live in those countries or you don't want to wait, then that's just your bad luck. And then they also removed all the previous seasons from Netflix. Now, of course, this is not just Paramount that is doing this. These negotiations probably have been going on for a few months, and they've been hyping up, like getting people excited, Netflix customers excited about the next season of Star Trek Discovery, so that they could get more money from Netflix. And Netflix, they probably thought, well, but people are subscribed to us for more than just Star Trek, They are about to launch their huge, high-profile Wheel of Time series this Friday. I'm recording this on Thursday. This Friday, we're going to get to see the first episode of Wheel of Time. And that is so big for them and so important. If this becomes the next Game of Thrones, then they don't need Star Trek for people to subscribe. So maybe Netflix was thinking, well, hey, if we premiere Star Trek this week and we also have Wheel of Time, that may actually collide. That is not good. Now we can put all the emphasis on Wheel of Time, and Paramount will look like they are the bad guys, you know, the Ferengi, because that's basically what the pushback has been from the fan community. People are livid. It's like, how can you do that? Why do you tell us to go watch it if we can't watch it? And so a lot of people are like, well, you're condemning us to piracy, which of course is not true. You have a choice. You can also just wait. But it's from a business point of view, I don't think this is a very smart move. It's associating a very, very bad taste from Star Trek fans, which is your core audience. You need that for the franchise. But they will associate that bad taste that they currently have, that feeling of frustration with the brand Paramount Plus. Whereas Netflix is like, don't look at us. They want to do this Paramount thing, so we just let them go. Now, I don't know if it went like that, but this is how it plays out. So I don't think it's a smart move. Never burn a bridge before you've built another one, right? Oh, well. But it's all comes down to money. Would you pay for another subscription, even though they will probably now bring all the Star Trek stuff together on Paramount Plus? But if you like Star Trek, would you actually be willing to pay for another subscription service? Or are you like, enough, I'll just buy the Blu-rays if they come out? A similar situation with Doctor Who. Doctor Who was I think it was on Netflix first, and then it went to Amazon Prime. But they never showed us the last seasons with the new Doctor, the female Doctor. So those, you cannot watch them. You have to live in the UK, have this subscription to their BBC iPlayer, which not many people have. And so if you want to watch these more recent seasons, I think you have to buy the Blu-rays, which are huge, very expensive, or you have to buy the episodes maybe on Apple. I don't even know. I've never really looked into it because I was just hoping that they would appear eventually on Amazon Prime, but it's been more than 2 years with no new Doctor Who episodes. So now I'm starting to look around. How can I watch these episodes? Because I'm a Doctor Who fan as well, but I'm starting to lose interest in the franchise. The harder you make it, the less of a market you will have. It's not that people have nothing else to watch, right? Anyway. Hey, a quick review before I move on to the next segment. There's this movie on Netflix, if you are subscribed to Netflix, that popped up on the front page. And so I checked it out. It looked interesting, called Red Notice. And it is a very, very fun movie. It surprised me. I didn't even know that they were planning on launching that movie. I think actually I'm able to play this on the. Let me check this out. I think there is a possibility for me to play the sound and also project the screen. Let me see if that works. I'm testing out my new. Oh, wait a minute! No, this is not going to work because I moved my browser window. So then the insert that I created on my screen, which the YouTube viewers will be able to see right now, it just messed everything up. Yeah, it's very difficult to do any type of like in-stream presentation for some reason. Well, let me see if I reload the page. For some reason, the computer is getting very slow as well. Maybe I'll be able to play it, and you'll be able to listen to the audio of the trailer. Nah, it's not even working. Oh. Well, at least we have audio.
The second most wanted art thief in the world. Special Agent John Hartley, FBI.
Okay, I apologize. There's no image. For those of you that are watching this.
William Strang's Lady with the Red Hat from the tape.
You can't prove that was me. Got that on Etsy.
I want you to help me catch the most wanted art.
Oh, that was it. Anyway, I was closing the browser window because I noticed that my stream got very choppy, probably because the computer was, I'm using this very old, like 7-year-old iMac. So it just couldn't do both things, play the video and then play the sound. And so anyway, but Red Notice is definitely worth your time. Check it out. It features The Rock. And also, what's his name? Oh, I also closed that window. Great, Father Roderick. You're just... All my show notes are gone as well. It's Ryan Reynolds, who is, of course, right now one of the most popular actors. Many know them from Deadpool, but he's been in what was it, the other movie that I reviewed the other day? Not Lucky Guy. Oh, what was it? Gosh, I love that movie and I can't remember the name. What is this? So he's been in Deadpool, The Proposal, Deadpool 2. Holy cow. Free Guy. I was like, was something with Guy. Free Guy. Love that movie. But anyway, he's also in this movie. So he plays opposite The Rock. And then they've got Gal Gadot as well, Wonder Woman. Well, the actress who plays Wonder Woman, she plays a character called the Bishop. And this is all, it's a bit of it kind of wants to be a heist movie. So it's about these 3 eggs of Cleopatra or Cleopatra in English. I don't know. Anyway, so there are these old artifacts and there is this thief, Ryan Reynolds' character, Nolan Booth, who wants to steal those eggs and sell them to the highest bidder. But also Gal Gadot's character is after these same eggs, and Dwayne Johnson's character, John Hartley, is trying to prevent it because he works for the FBI, apparently. But instead of a heist movie, actually, there is one movie that this particular movie reminded me of, and that is Indiana Jones. And there are very deliberate references to the Indiana Jones franchise. There are some other in jokes as well. But the chemistry is great. I love the chemistry between The Rock and Ryan Reynolds. That works really well. Actually, it's on par, you know. Normally with Ryan Reynolds, you're always kind of expecting that he will take the lead. But The Rock is also, his comedic timing is pretty good as well. And he's, of course, a huge, imposing figure in any movie that he plays in. Like Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise was all about Dwayne Johnson. This movie, it's much more, the balance is much better, I think. And also Gal Gadot's character is very prominent and very good as well. And it just works. It's such a fun movie. When you see the trailer, you're like, yeah. But the movie itself is actually way better than I first thought after having seen the trailer. It's the most expensive movie that Netflix has ever made. And again, you wouldn't be able to tell from the trailer, but if you watch the movie, you're like, oh my goodness, yeah. This could have been a theatrical release, and it would have been a huge hit. This could have been Disney. Instead, it's Netflix. But go watch it. I'm sure you will enjoy it if you trust my reviews. It's a popcorn movie. I mean, it doesn't go very deep, but it still has that same Indiana Jones vibe, and it's just a fun movie, and also a movie you can watch several times, even though there are some plot twists that I think the second time will be less surprising, of course. But still, it's definitely worth your time. So it's called Red Notice.
Catholics rock!
Here at the Peculiar Bunch, we're always happy to tell you everything you always wanted to know about Catholics and their weird traditions, but you were afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
And today I want to explain something about that immediately concerns my state of life. And that is the topic of ordination.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
Now, you know that for the past half year, I've been staying at the rectory of Father Henry, and I wasn't the only person who stayed at his house. There are 2 Italian students. Well, actually, they're no longer students. They already have a job in the Netherlands, but they are from Italy. Luigi and Michele. And then there is Eric, who did his internship in Father Henry's parish. And stayed during that time. He stayed at the rectory, but he's now also been nominated as a future priest in the same parish, and they're looking for a home for him as well, a rectory. But that may still take some time. So he too stays at the rectory. Eric is a great guy. He's actually studied law. So he's had already a career before he got the vocation to become a priest. And what's also very cool is he's a huge fan of board games. He's read the entire Wheel of Time. He's a huge fan of movies. So there's not a single book that he hasn't read. It's insane. So we have a lot in common. And this past weekend on Saturday, he was ordained a deacon at the cathedral. Now, you may wonder, if you're not familiar with the Catholic tradition, or you need to brush up on that, why a deacon? He wanted to become a priest. Why do they ordain him a deacon? Well, this is what is called a transitional deacon. So it's a transitional phase. The first ordination, before you become a priest, is you become ordained a deacon. Now, deacons are already mentioned in the New Testament. And the occasion is described in the Acts of the Apostles, where you've got these apostles, right? They've been very close to Jesus for most of their adult life, well, at least for the number of years that they've been following him. And then afterwards, of course, when Jesus is no longer there, they kind of take over. They are the apostle, the first priests, you could say, or the first bishops. Our current bishops are still the inheritance. How do you say that? They've been ordained by ultimately generations before them that have been originally ordained by the apostles. So ordination is something you already see described when it comes to the bishops. So they for instance, you've got Judas, who, of course, is dead at one point. They still feel they need a replacement. So they choose another person to step into that role, and then he is ordained, and so he's now one of the apostles. And then this ordination involves a prayer, because, of course, it's not just a function. It's not just a job, like where you have a job interview and then we will hire you. No, it's an ordination. An ordination means ordinare is to direct something for a specific task or job. It's to dedicate someone to, how would you say that? To almost to reserve someone for a special function or a special state of life, because of course being a bishop is it's not just a job, it's something you become. So an ordination is always almost like transformational event in which you are no longer the old you, but you become entirely 100% dedicated to the task that is given to you. So the task is all-encompassing. It's not just something you do from 9 to 5, even though, of course, we're encouraged to also sleep and spend time relaxing and reading books. But it is not something... I don't switch off being a priest at 5 o'clock or when I'm done with this podcast. No, I am a priest day and night for the rest of eternity, in fact. So it's also what we call in theology and philosophy, it's an ontological event, an ordination. It changes something in the core of who you are. And so in the New Testament, you see this description in the Acts of the Apostles of these newer bishops. You have the first priests that start to emerge. And then at one point, there are so many needs in those early Christian communities, especially social needs. You know, the widows, the people that are sick, the people that struggle with life, or the poor. And a lot of the bishops and priests are overburdened. There's so much for them to do, teaching, liturgy tasks, all these. But then you also have this, you're taking care of people. And that's when they decide to ordain certain people for the job, for the life of as a deacon. And the deacons are supposed to do what the priests can't do, not because they don't want to or they don't have the ability, but because the day just has 24 hours and the need is so great. So these deacons are tasked with a number of things. Of course, they teach, just like priests. They preach. A deacon can preach during Mass, can do a homily. So they can explain the faith. They have certain liturgical tasks. For instance, a deacon is allowed to perform baptisms, to administer the sacrament of baptism. He can be witness for a wedding, but he can't celebrate the Eucharist. That is something that only a priest can do. You have to have this other ordination for that to be possible. And then, of course, a bishop is a third ordination, and a bishop can do everything. So he's like the top level, like medium level is priest, top level is bishop. And so, for instance, a bishop can ordain another bishop. A priest cannot do that. And a deacon, so you've got that. But that's like a hierarchical. That is like almost as if you're looking at it as a video game. But it's also, every state of life has a different goal, a different type of work. And so the reason that before you become ordained a priest, you are first ordained a deacon is because of the importance of this, of the caring aspects of ordination. That God wants us first and foremost to be servants of the people, to be close to people, to help them. And that's another very important function and dimension of the deaconate, is not just to do liturgical stuff and to pray and to teach, but also to take care of people in need. That's very practical. Go visit the people that are sick. Go support and help the widows and people that have lost their job, stuff like that. And so I always thought it was beautiful that you are first ordained a deacon, because that is kind of that's the basic ingredient of any state of life in the church. You are here to serve, to help other people. And then some of these deacons, the transitional deacons, will also receive the ordination to become a priest. That's not just a level up, but you retain all the duties and tasks of the previous level. So you are still a deacon, even though you are now ordained a priest, and you can do more than that. And then you have also what we call permanent deacons, and they will not receive the ordination to become a priest. It's sometimes possible. Sometimes a permanent deacon, for instance, if those can also be married. Transitional deacons not, because they will ultimately, of course, become ordained priests, which in the Latin, according to the Latin rite, have to live a celibate life. But permanent deacons can be married, and sometimes it happens that their partner will die, and then they could apply to be ordained a priest. But that's rare. It does happen from time to time. So Eric is a transitional deacon, and in about half a year from now, if everything goes well, and he will be ordained a priest, and then he will have basically the same functions as I have and Father Henry has. The other difference is you can be a priest and still have non-parishional duties. So in my case, I am a priest, but I'm not a pastor. In a sense, Father Henry is the pastor. This is the main. He is by law the responsible person for the entire functioning of the parish. So he takes the decisions. My work is in the media. So I've got a evangelizing role. And of course I assist in the parishes, but I have no say in, well, I do have a say in some things, but I'm not directing the parish. I'm not running the parish. That is a job for Father Henry. And then Eric, when he's ordained, he will be we call it actually a parish vicar in canon law. So that's church law. So he is representing the pastor, you could say, helping him. So that is that's the difference. With me, I can spend 100% of my time creating media and doing this sort of stuff, recording podcasts and making TV shows. But at the same time, I still remain a priest. So it's not just a job, it's a state of life. And the final thing I want to say is ordination, according to the Catholic doctrine, is one sacrament. You've got 7 sacraments, right? So ordination itself is one sacrament, but as I explained before, you still have 3, you could say, degrees of ordination, 3 types of ordination. You've got the ordination to become a deacon, then you've got the priestly ordination, and then you have the ordination to become a bishop. You may think, Father Roderick, you're forgetting one. There is the upper top level cap is the guy with the white cassock on St. Peter's Square. The Pope is at level cap. Do you get an ordination to become a Pope? No. In fact, no, absolutely not. The Pope is also a bishop. That is his ordination. He is originally and is the Bishop of Rome. And so in Latin, you would say he is, just like Peter was one of the apostles. And at the same time, he was chosen by Jesus to be the one who leads the other apostles, who leads the church. So he has let's say, a even more responsibility, but he is still an apostle like the others. So in this case, the Pope is the Bishop of Rome, and historically, ever since Peter, one of these apostles and successors of the apostles had to lead the pack, right? So there is leadership involved, but it does not make him something different, something other than a bishop. So what about cardinals? Cardinals, that's also not an ordination. A cardinal is usually a bishop, even though technically, according to canon law, that is not an absolute requirement, but in current law, you have to be ordained a bishop before you can become a cardinal. But the cardinals originally were just the assistant priests of the Bishop of Rome. So that's why every cardinal still has his own church in Rome. It's symbolic because these cardinals are everywhere in the world, but when they go to Rome, they still have their parish church because formally they are the pastors of the various parishes of Rome, assisting the Bishop of Rome, the Pope himself. So the visual aspect, the white cassock, all that is just historical. A few centuries ago, a Pope did not wear white. That is very recent. It was because one of the more newer popes was a Dominican, I think, and then he was just walking around in his white cassock, and then they just kept that color to distinguish him from the other bishops. But in earlier times and centuries, the Pope would look just like any other bishop. Maybe he would have a little bit more personnel. I'm not sure about that. So hopefully that kind of clears it up a little bit. A short compendium of all these different types of ordinations that we have in the Catholic Church.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
Hey, before I tell you about the books that I've been reading, just a quick thing that I forgot to mention in the movies and TV segment, because it was already so long. Of course, the official trailer for Spiderman No Way Home is out, and some of you in the chat are now asking me about that. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? go watch my reaction video on YouTube. It's on the same channel as all the other stuff. And it's just one of those reaction videos. You know the drill. I get excited and then some. So, but I love it. And I think it's going to be maybe the best Spider-Man movie ever. That's my hope. All right, books. So, because of how busy my life is and has been for the past few weeks, I've not had that much time to read. I've been listening to a few audiobooks, but I'm also not training very much. I just ran a marathon a few weeks ago, and I was always listening to audiobooks while preparing for that marathon. But now I'm in recovery mode, so I do these very short runs, like half an hour, and it's just too short to start an audiobook. I did read one book, which I also talk about in the last week's episode of The Walk, which is another podcast. In case you don't know what that is, just look for The Walk with Father Roderick. And it's called The Compound Effect. It's a very interesting book. It's nonfiction. It sounds like a science fiction novel, right? The Compound Effect. Or it could be a movie, like this B movie featuring unknown actors, The Compound Effect. Now on VHS. But it is actually a book about something that I've been applying to my life for about a year now, and that is small habits. So change, if you want to reach big goals, you got to start small. And the idea is if you make a small change, but you do that consistently over time, that will make your life very, very different. One of the examples in the book is if you could choose between either you get $1 million right now, you just get it cash, or the other choice is you get 1 penny that will double in value every week for a month. What would you choose? I didn't do the calculation. Maybe it's slightly different, but anyway, the right answer is you got to take that penny because it will continue to grow over time and it will be worth way more than the 1 million cash in one time. And he uses that example to apply it to our habits. Small habits can go a long way into completely transforming your life. And the cool thing about the compound effect is like this little change just amasses energy and strength and efficacy. And I always think of how I got into running. When I tell people, the other day actually, for the first time in my life, I joined a running club. One of the parishioners that works here was interviewing me for the local parish bulletin, and he had heard that I had run the Marathon of Rotterdam. So he said, I do workshops. It's my job I'm a running instructor. So join us. And I was like, oh, I've always done this alone by myself. So the other day I was joining this group of runners. So I told some of them that I'd been running a marathon, and they were like, oh my goodness. Some of them all just started running like 2 years ago. I was like, but how do you do this? It's such a huge distance. And I said, well, it's actually very simple. I just, at one point in my life, I was like, I'm just going to run. I'd never run before. But I was like, I just downloaded this schedule. I bought some running shoes, and I just did 1 kilometer, and I thought I was going to die. And then the next day, I did that same kilometer, and I felt a little less like dying there on the spot. And then a week later, I could run 3 kilometers and then some. And then over time, I noticed that if you do that and the consistency of the habit, of course, is the biggest game changer. I've been doing this for more than 10 years now. And by constantly going out to run and following the schedule, and it's just a part of my routines, you just can run longer and longer. You become stronger. You start to lose weight. You have this energy. You start to enjoy it. It also, running does a lot of stuff chemically in your brain. So it had such a massive impact on my entire life that I was hooked. And then there is nothing to it. Running a marathon, it's easy. It's easy because you can just do a little bit every day. And then after, 18 weeks, you can run a marathon. Anyone can run a marathon. Well, anyone who is physically healthy and has the joints that can support them. But it's not much of a big deal. But of course, when you see me running the marathon, you may think, well, that's 42 kilometers and then some. But what you don't see on the day of the run is that I've trained 5 times every week for 18 weeks. So in total, you run, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of kilometers before you run those last 42 kilometers. So anyway, the book is about that. And in the walk, I explain something else that the book made clear to me. I won't go over it here, but that was such an eye-opening thing, that this book, because I read some other books about tiny habits. And so at first I was like, sounds so much like the other books that I've read. But there was this little thing that was like, oh, wow. Now I understand why some habits don't stick and why I have so much trouble integrating some aspects, some habits into my day-to-day life. And anyway, if you want to hear the whole story, just go and listen to last week's episode of The Walk. That's the book that I've been reading. And of course, well, with Wheel of Time around the corner, I'm pretty sure that after tomorrow, after seeing the Wheel of Time episode, which, by the way, I hope to be able to do a show about here on YouTube. There is a huge audience out there that needs to know how cool Wheel of Time is. So I'm thinking of doing a separate series just about these episodes, where same as I did with some Star Wars stuff. I'll just go over each episode and highlight the things that I liked and things I learned from it. But anyway, so I'll probably be reading more Wheel of Time soon as well.
The scientifically wonderful world of science.
What sort of science?
Welcome back, science friends.
Well, I'm so grateful that we have some very scientific calculators in the comments section. Flying Car 100 has calculated that this 1 penny that doubles in value for a month actually will result in $10,737,418.20. So, the book is right. You have to pick the penny. Anyway, the science segment, there's this one bit of news that I saw, which was kind of frightening, and that is that the International Space Station had to shift course, actually had to go to a higher orbit because of space junk. I mean, I always remember the asteroid scene in The Empire Strikes Back, and when I saw that on the big screen as a child, I was like, oh, I didn't even know that flying in space could be so dangerous. You kind of think of space as this huge empty place, but then the asteroid field that they enter with the Millennium Falcon is just this big, garbage. What is it? It's just full of flying garbage and these potatoes and potato-shaped rocks. It's super dangerous. And that made me aware, like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe space is not this empty. It turns out that the space around Earth is actually littered with junk. And some of these objects can be super tiny. They can be less than an inch. But because they are traveling, they are in orbit, their speed can be extremely high. So even a tiny there are specks of paint flying around. And because of the speed, they can actually damage space stations. And it's, in this case, this was debris from a satellite that was launched by China, and then they destroyed the satellite. And so there is above that area apparently a whole cloud of debris with mostly tiny pieces, but also some bigger pieces. And if this International Space Station would hit it, it could actually threaten the life of the astronauts. So I was like, wow, what are we going to do with this? We already are littering the Earth with so much of our junk. And now you can't even go to a safe orbit in space anymore without having to track all these little bits and pieces. And apparently there are scientists that are tracking every tiny little bit that is flying around there. And they have to. But there are thousands and thousands of objects that could potentially harm future crews of space stations or other, now with the tourist industry discovering space, that's a lousy way of ending your life, right? Like, he was hoping to fly in space, and then he got hit by a bit of metal. It's like not even a big asteroid or something spectacular that they can turn into a movie later on, but just some leftover debris. Someone repaired a satellite, and then they forgot a few screws, and that killed the crew. Where is the time that the only thing that could kill you in space was aliens?
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Let's plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
There is one more thing that we need to talk about, and it's not Harry Potter. I apologize for those of you that have just started to listen to this or watch the stream. Life of Nate in the chat is asking, well, what does this have to do with Harry Potter? Because, of course, the image for the stream is Harry Potter. But this is, I'm recording a podcast right now, and so in the first part of the show, I'm talking about this news that broke that Chris Columbus, the director of the first Harry Potter movie, wants to do a re-edit, like a super director's cut that is 3 hours long. So I discussed that in detail in the earlier part of this show. So my apologies, since this is live, can't tell you to scroll back. But when I'm done, you can go back to the beginning and listen to that part of the show. That's the downside of podcasting and with a live stream. What are you going to put in the title? So I'm just thinking I'm just going to talk about Harry Potter first. So I'll just put a picture of that. And then my apologies that the rest is not exactly Harry Potter themed. By the way, an alternative, it's something I've been pondering about, but maybe as a community, you can give me some advice. Another option for me would be to not stream these entire podcasts, but just stream little bits and then just create a new stream for, a movie review. The downside of that, of course, is that it makes it more, I become more self-aware, I feel like I need talking points. Like a podcast, I can just chat. It just feels like having a personal conversation with you. When I'm going to produce a specific video about a specific topic, oftentimes I have trouble putting that together because I feel like I'm underprepared. Imposter syndrome, maybe. And then, of course, I would have to compile all these little bits and pieces into a podcast, which I think will break the natural flow of what is ultimately an audio production that is meant to be listened in, almost while you are driving to work or running or walking the dog. So, but it's always, I know that these streams on YouTube are not very good for my overall for the YouTube channel, because it's just about everything, and so it doesn't have a focus, and the algorithm of YouTube doesn't know what to do with it. So, but I've been thinking about maybe doing one stream per topic, but then I'm not sure if it would be the same. And then maybe I could just do podcasting in a different way, just record it as an audio. But I like the interaction with the audience, strangely enough. It helps me to talk, because I feel like I'm not talking into the void. I'm looking at a camera on a tripod, but I have you in the chat room. That helps with the recording of a podcast. It changes the dynamic. Anyway, let's wrap this up so people can go scroll back to the Harry Potter part of this show. I've been finally installing the Wi-Fi. So I've got fiber internet right now, and then the trick was to also create a mesh network for Wi-Fi. it is it's harder than I thought. I only have a few wired connections in certain rooms because I thought, I'm going to have super fast Wi-Fi. Turns out that my old equipment, like this little laptop that I have here in front of me, is also old when it comes to Wi-Fi technology. So it's pretty slow, even though it should be able to download very fast. But it's just the Wi-Fi chip is also more than 7 years old. I did not think of that. And then my PC, the one on which I'm doing the video games, and I was hoping to be able to stream also some of those video games, it's also on Wi-Fi, and it was even slower. And that is a relatively new computer. It's like 3 years old. And turns out that over time, your settings can actually slow down the computer. And I had to look up a tutorial on how to kind of get rid of all the old settings. So apparently the PC still had settings from like two addresses ago, when I was still at the office in Amersfoort in the center of the city. And it somehow just couldn't deal with the new settings of the Wi-Fi here. Such a pain. You just think that Wi-Fi is like water, but no, it's not. I also, for the first time, saw the MacBook Pro and the iPad Mini in real life. There was a store that had them, and it was interesting. I was pleasantly surprised by the iPad Mini. I heard that there are a lot of complaints about the refresh rates, or like when you scroll the screen, it's not very smooth. I didn't really notice it, but what I did notice was how good the camera was. So the front camera is actually better than the camera on the MacBook Pros, which has always been this big enigma. Why does Apple put such crappy cameras in these high-end products? Insane. My phone has like 5 times better camera than their laptops. And it's not just about size. There are tons of laptops that have better cameras than Apple has. But anyway, the iPad Mini has a tremendous camera on the front. So it's a selfie camera. And it has technology that will actually follow you around when you're walking. And that for me is interesting, because then I'm thinking of, YouTube applications. For instance, I could, instead of sitting at my desk with a fixed camera view, it's kind of boring to look at, of course. I could be walking around, and even though the iPad would just be on a stand, it would still seem as if there was a cameraman. Now, the only thing with this, because Apple, it probably will only work with a few apps. And for those of you that have actually an iPad Mini, I'd love to hear your feedback on this. Can you use this for streams? Or is this just something for FaceTime, which I don't use because I have more than just Apple. I have an Android phone. So most of my friends don't have Apple equipment. So FaceTime is not a big thing here in Europe. But I wouldn't be surprised if Apple just reserves this cool feature just for FaceTime and then maybe recording something, but not for live. You cannot use it on Facebook or on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Let me know, because if somehow this would become available for live streams, that would be for me an instant buy. You hear that, Apple? Make that available for YouTube streams, instant buy. I'll immediately get an iPad Mini. But now I'm hesitant. The MacBook Pro, you've heard me review what I saw on the presentation in one of the earlier shows. I was very impressed. I thought it was great that not only is the computer super fast, but also has an SD port, has multiple USB-C ports. I was seriously considering buying one until I saw them in real life. And I was like, I'm not convinced. They are big. They're clunky. They're heavy, especially the 16-inch, which, of course, for a video editor like me would be very interesting. It's so heavy. That thing is so massive. And it doesn't have the same elegance as previous MacBook models. Now, of course, these are designed as workhorses. But for me, the mobility is a very important factor. I travel super light. When I go to Rome, I only take carry-on luggage. So if a computer already is like 5 pounds, I'm not going to buy it because I can't take it with me. That's the total amount of luggage that I can bring along. So I was comparing the MacBook Pros with the simple MacBook Air, the one that has also the M1 chip. Even though that only has one USB port or 2 USB ports, it's so light. It's so elegant. And the screens are like, it's almost the same. A very vibrant screen, very good quality. The operating system is exactly the same. And apparently the M1 is, even in these cheaper machines, is still incredibly fast compared to the generation before. So I thought I was convinced I needed a MacBook Pro. Now that I've seen these two in real life and felt how heavy they are, I'm not as sure as I was. Maybe I'll just skip another generation and wait for them to bring the speed, at least the ports. Bring the ports to the cheaper Macs, and then also instant buy. That wraps it up for today. Thank you so much for listening to this show. Of course, for those of you that are patrons, there is another hour waiting for you called Father Roderick to the Max. And in this episode, I will give you my recipe for savory oatmeal. Yeah, sounds ugly, but it is really delicious. We'll talk about habits a little bit more, how I use the Amazon Echo and the Google Home in conjunction with each other. So I've been installing a lot of smart devices in my house. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We will continue our discussion about superheroes, and Henry Cavill apparently wants to continue Superman's story with new movies. Is that a good idea? We'll talk more about liturgy, and I will give you some reviews of games that I recently played. All that and more coming up for my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick and Father Roderick to the Max. Thanks for listening. See you soon. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for your patience. And again, my apologies to those of you that were expecting a full discussion. What's that? Wait, I need to check if there's someone at the door, because I was waiting for these IKEA guys. Let me go check. I'll be back in a minute. False alarm. I thought I heard something, but I have this new Google doorbell, and I'm still not very confident if it will always work. Normally, it should alert me. I've got a number of Google Home Minis here, so they should tell me there's someone at the door. But since it's Wi-Fi, I'm always like, is it really working? I'm waiting for a delivery, an IKEA delivery, for some doors for my kitchen that still need to be installed. So, yeah, I was a little bit on the edge there. Let me see what's going on in the chat. Oh, now Father Henry's calling me. Oh, man, things are... I'm working, Father Henry. I'll call you back when I have time. Anyway... So, did you hear about the Harry Potter reunion? Yes, we talked about that earlier on in the episode. It's cool. Did I hear about the situation in Poland and Belarus? Yeah, it's tragic. I think it's horrible that From what I understand, Belarus is using these refugees to put pressure on Poland and on the European Union. But you can't use people for political goals. I think it's awful what happens there. Yeah, the movie Gravity had actually the same idea of space junk causing an accident. The gaming politician has to run. What do you feel about the Spider-Man movie trailer? Well, see my reaction video. And we've got Jose Luis Arvelo from Venezuela, who is posting the same thing over and over again. Blu-ray Monster, first time on the stream. Welcome. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. And you just watched Red Notice. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Mauricio is here from Tijuana. Good to see you. Marcin, Paul Gibbons says they should have done an extended DVD from the start like Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I assume you're talking about Harry Potter. I will do the house tour when we're completely done with the house. Bananek wants to know if I am a pastor. Yes, I'm a priest. And that is about it. I still don't know what the Streamlabs OBS thing is about. Streamlabs is based on OBS, so maybe it's a patent issue or something. Interesting. I do like Streamlabs because it's very user-friendly. OBS is much more techie. Where am I from? I'm from the Netherlands. You are watching a stream from the small town of Bennekom in I'd say the middle part of the Netherlands. Are you going to see Ghostbusters? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I also still have to see the Eternals. But thanks for reminding me, because I think it is actually premiering today, Ghostbusters. I may be able to go see. Do I have time tomorrow? Maybe I can squeeze it in tomorrow. That'd be cool. Otherwise, I'm going to see it on Saturday. And of course, I'll record a YouTube review without spoilers. All right, well, that kind of wraps it up for today. Thank you so much again for stopping by. Leave a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, or comment. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'll be back with more. And let me know your thoughts in the comments also about whether I should do separate videos per topic, or if you're okay with these blabbering podcast streams as well. Should I do both, or one or the other? Let me know. And also make sure to follow my other channel about Lego. I think it's somewhere on the page, on the YouTube page, where you can find a link to that. Because hopefully I'll be back streaming Lego sessions soon. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your day and see you later.